Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are reconvening the Children, Seniors, and Families Committee, Finance and Government Operations Committee really together. And the first thing we're going to do is just brief introductions of those of us on the dais. And John, if I could start with you.
John Mills on behalf of the County Executive's Office.
Dave Cortese, Board of Supervisors.
Cindy Chavez, Board of Supervisors.
Good afternoon. Rob Coelho from County Counsel's Office.
Great. And then if there's anybody here that would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda today but within the purview of our committee, this would be the time to do that. Seeing none. Are you, Scott, interested? Did you do a card already? Yes, ma'am. Okay, great. Come on up.
Thank you. Okay, ready when you are. Thank you, thank you. Good almost evening, everyone. Scott Largent. We have some flyers that are out in the hallway that talk about the behavioral health services that we offer in our county. These, they're kind of clever forms. They do give you email addresses and phone numbers. I grabbed a stack of these and I went and got them laminated. And I started going to all the businesses downtown and handing them these handy little flyers, and hopefully they'd know the correct numbers to call to get help for the crackheads that are living out in front of their businesses. On here, it has one phone number for a drug rehab. So we have on here almost 16 different email addresses and phone numbers, and anything from a nonprofit to whatever they are. And we have right here one number for a rehab facility, bless you. And what I thought was strange is that number just goes to a voicemail. You can't get anybody on the horn. I thought that was weird. I went out to the location. There's a sign on there that says we don't take walk-in business at this moment for drug rehabilitation. So that's in all of Santa Clara County. This stuff's not making sense. Now, from attending a lot of these meetings, you guys know I don't just come here. I pay attention. I research. I go through the packet. I go home and I watch everything. What I'm coming up with is that we're making money off of these people. If we keep them in our system on meth through a mental health process, we can bill, and bill more. And that's what we do in our county, and that's what we're doing at Valley Medical. At one Health and Hospitals meeting, they said for 6 months they billed the state out for $136 million. That's a big number right there. And that was on mental health services. Where's the drug rehabilitation? The people downtown, I'd have to say 80 to 90% of them, it's the meth. When you eliminate the meth, there's no mental health problem. Okay? I don't have a mental health problem. 3 years ago, I had a meth problem. Okay? And inside some of these orders, which are civil and peaceful, and I would love to provide this stuff to you guys sometime, this is about 7 pages of all the absolute whack stuff I was doing, going by my ex's house, trying to see my child, everything I was doing on methamphetamines. You read through this stuff, you would think that I had a severe mental health problem. I thought things were coming out of the sky, people were trying to hunt me down and stalk me, and this was the meth. So how do we get these people drug treatment instead of just billing them out for services they don't really need? I'm frustrated downtown right now. I'm trying to get these people help. They need to get off the drugs. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So we're going to move on to our hearing, and this is a special hearing relating to parcel tax exemptions affecting seniors and homeowners with disabilities. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, Supervisor Cortese, is turn to you. I know this was an initiative that you got us focused on, and then we'll roll through this public hearing, and maybe you can just talk for a moment about the end result of the hearing as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Supervisor Chavez. And thank you for all those who are in attendance. I'm sure we'll have a chance to say thank you again as time moves on. If you're wondering already, and I apologize, we started a couple minutes late, but we are going to be pretty diligent, as Supervisor Chavez generally is as chair, to try to keep to a methodical program here today in terms of amount of time allocated per speaker and so forth. So if we do that, we can have a pretty efficient meeting in the time prescribed on the agenda. So that we're mindful of time, and we're mindful that all of you are busy, whether you're here as residents of the community, as interested parties, as representatives of school districts, council, or anybody else who's here. The subject matter, perhaps more specifically, is really just a focus on improved information accessibility around parcel tax exemptions for seniors and homeowners with disabilities. I just wanted to say, I think for today, the word improved perhaps is the operative word in terms of what we're interested in, and that was, as I think most of the school districts know and some of the members of the public that are paying attention tonight, that is a subject that was picked up on by the Santa Clara County Grand Jury, civil grand jury, which issued a report which certain groups in the community, especially those that cater to seniors and responding to inquiries made by seniors, including some funded by our county government through grant programs, have had concerns about follow-up on. And so we appreciate, again, particularly relative to the school districts, since we're a separate body of government, albeit overlapping in this particular subject matter in terms of caseload and concern and so on, we do appreciate you responding to our call to convene today to have a discussion about this subject. I know that many of the school districts responded already to an inquiry that we made in writing weeks ago in advance of putting this agenda together in terms of what your current practices are relative to statutory requirements, information accessibility around parcel tax exemptions particularly, and we appreciate that information. I do want to say that I'm not absolutely certain who we have or who may be walking into the room. Obviously, it's a public meeting, doors open, particularly from legislative offices in the area. We have been notified post-invitation to Senator Bell's office that his staff is streaming the proceedings or watching it through streaming. This is being streamed through the Create TV facilities that we have here this afternoon or this evening, whichever you prefer. Supervisor Chavez, I think the agenda starts off with a brief overview by County Council, a brief overview by Office of Education, a brief overview by the Finance Agency, and then an opportunity for each of the districts that are here, and there may be up to 14 depending on who's made it down here based on RSVPs, to spend about 5 minutes each just letting us know what their current practices are, what their general response to the subject matter is in terms of information they can share with us and with the public. Ultimately, we will talk about the possibility at the end of the meeting of referring something to the Board of Supervisors, perhaps in the form of a resolution that is a restatement, if you will, of what we would be interested in seeing happen, just as we've done with other jurisdictions in the past, be it the juvenile justice system or the courts, where we may not have primary jurisdiction, but we feel the need to make a statement as to what we think is appropriate policy that the Board of Supervisors wants to stand by and encourage. So that's it. We will have a couple of opportunities on the agenda, and I don't know, Supervisor Chavez, if your office and my office on housekeeping have talked about that a great deal. You will walk through when advocates in the community will have an opportunity, because I only mentioned the school districts and the opening overviews, but of course we're going to have an opportunity for advocates to step up and talk about what they see as concerns.
Great. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to 3 5-minute reports, and then we're going to ask the superintendents or representatives to come forward. And I'm going to ask, did all the superintendents or schools representatives, did you have a chance to sign in? Do we have a list of who's here? Aim, can I ask you to do that? And that way we can organize people in, oh, Bill, could you do that? That would be great. So I do see that I have a list, but the list from my eyesight doesn't necessarily match who's here, and I just want to make sure I'm accurate. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend 5 minutes on a presentation from County Council, and County Council will give a report relating to the civil grand jury. Then we're going to go to the Santa Clara County Office of Education for another 5 minutes, and then our finance agency's report on the recommendations from the grand jury. And then what we're going to do is give an opportunity for public comment on those items, and then as part of that public comment, we'll take a couple of members of the public who are not attached to any specific organization, and then we'll take feedback from the superintendents or the representatives who are here, and we're going to give each of you 2 or 3 minutes to do that. If you need more time, let us know, but what our objective is to make sure everybody gets heard, so I'm going to be nitpicky about time. And I may ask our staff to put the timer on for each of the presenters so that, Frank, so that we make sure that even our presenters are hitting that 5-minute target. Okay? So we're going to start then with Rob.
Rob Coelho from County Counsel's office. We, in response to a board referral, prepared a memo, which I believe is accessible in the back of the room and has been distributed to those at the dais, about our analysis of recent legislation as well as where things stand as it relates to the county's response to the civil grand jury's recommendations. Mary Hannah Weir, a deputy county counsel from our office, is here to present that.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mary Hannah Weir, deputy county counsel. So our memo goes through a little bit of background, and I wanted to summarize that briefly for the benefit of folks who didn't have an opportunity to read it. In general, school districts in the county and in the state can enact parcel taxes through a ballot measure with 2/3 approval of the voters. Those parcel taxes can have 3 kinds of exemptions if the school districts so choose. Those are exemptions for persons 65 years of age and older, people receiving supplemental Social Security income for a disability regardless of their age, and folks receiving Social Security disability insurance benefits regardless of age if their income does not exceed 250% of the federal poverty line. And so we did a little bit of an update to the work that the civil grand jury had done in terms of putting together a list of all of the school districts in the county that offer a parcel tax and also have an exemption. There are several districts that don't have a parcel tax. There was one district that did during the time of the civil grand jury reports, but that parcel tax is now expired. And what we generally found is that since the time of this grand jury report, the initial grand jury report in 2017 identified a number of ways in which school districts seem to be making it difficult in their estimation to claim the exemptions. One piece of note is that the state statutes around these exemptions had changed as of January of 2017, so it was just a few months after that change that the civil grand jury report happened. And that change required that those exemptions remain in effect as long as the taxpayer remains eligible. And so there had been a practice of yearly application for the exemption, and the statutory change would have made that unnecessary. In the intervening time, we in the county have begun collecting information from school districts. The controller treasurer, who I think is also here today, now publishes a website where you can get the contact information. You can get exactly the websites that you need to go to for the school district to claim the exemption, and it provides information about which exemptions each school district has. In looking at that website, that's a collection that's done once a year. And so in doing our own research and building off of the research that Supervisor Cortese's office had done, we found that there were sometimes discrepancies between what was on the controller website and what the school district were saying. And our best estimate as to why that might be is just that they had changed their policy to make it easier for folks to claim the exemptions. So some had made it appear as if you had to reapply every year, but if you actually go through the school district's website, you no longer have to do that. There are some school districts that do still require annual verification, typically through a letter that they send to the property owners that are claiming an exemption with a return back. And then
Can I just ask, is that presumably, since you didn't say otherwise, even though there's no annual requirement to renew, what you were just describing is still within the statute?
I think it's a bit unclear
Okay.
exactly how the statute would handle that sort of annual verification. It's not the same as the application process, and so it's a much less intense effort by the taxpayer to sort of verify. It's typically a one-page form where they just check, yes, I'm still eligible, and mail it back. They don't have to reprove their eligibility each year through those annual verifications.
It would just seem to me as, and I'm not saying that you can draw that inference yourself as an attorney, but it would just seem to me as a policymaker, as someone who legislates at the county level, that the intent of having a non-renewal requirement would be to not have to check any boxes or send any papers in. So that's just my 2 cents, and I want to let you keep going now.
I appreciate it. It may be a better practice. We did identify in our memo one school district that does at least currently appear to require annual reapplication. And so that might be something to reach out to them about.
Great, thank you.
I took some of her time, I apologize.
That's all right, and she's going to stay right there.
I am planning to stay here.
Good,
Yes.
so we
I'm
can
gonna
get
turn my
more.
microphone off.
And now the County Office of Education, I don't know if that's Mary Ann or, great. Mary Ann, you're welcome to sit over here on this side if you'd like. Welcome.
There we go. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak and to share some information related to this parcel tax exemption. I'm Mary Ann Dewan. I'm the County Superintendent of Schools for Santa Clara County, and joining me today is Megan Riley, our Chief Business Officer. So today I'm just going to provide a brief overview regarding the Santa Clara County Office of Education process as it relates to notifying seniors and homeowners with disabilities of the availability of parcel tax exemptions, and to share a little bit about the role and statutory framework of the County Superintendent and the County Office of Education. It is important to note that the County Office of Education nor the County Board of Education is a taxing entity, so we ourselves and our own operations do not have any parcel tax that is done. The county superintendent, in terms of role, works directly with school districts to provide support and guidance for operations and areas of oversight and support. Under Education Code Section 1240, as superintendent of schools is required to superintend or oversee the schools in the county. A county superintendent is responsible for examining and improving school district budgets, expenditures, and local control and accountability plans. After the passage of Assembly Bill 1200, county superintendents gained additional duties and responsibility for oversight related to sound budgeting by reviewing a set of criteria and standards and review of a multi-year budget. County superintendent is also responsible for calling school district elections and assisting with school district emergencies by providing services and reports to the state superintendent of schools regarding the operations of local school districts, and also addressing issues of adequacy and sufficiency related to facility condition, textbooks, student learning progress, and accuracy of data regarding school accountability. Under Education Code Section 1040, the County Board of Education reviews include expulsion appeals and appeals regarding charter school applications. As part of the process related to the parcel tax, our staff did provide some training, and this training was provided back in sorry, I lost the date here, August 24th of 2017, we did provide some training to school districts related to the parcel tax exemption, as well as how to better manage the process and to provide approval of applications to eligible homeowners in a more expeditious manner. Because of our limited role in this area, we were limited to providing recommended training and providing technical assistance, but we don't have any responsibility or authority to provide any mandates in this area. We were grateful to be able to provide this training to our districts in collaboration with the County of Santa Clara, the Finance Agency, and the Controller Treasurer Department. Additionally, we do provide ongoing support in our service role to school districts throughout the school year. So at different times throughout the year, chief business officers in the districts work with our staff to provide clarifications and assistance as they relate to budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we're going to go then to our finance agency. And then Dr. Allende, I got your note. We'll have you come after them.
Good afternoon. I'm Alan Minato, the Finance Director for the County of Santa Clara. And so I have to the left of me, Margaret Elia. Margaret is the department head for the Department of Tax and Collections. One of her responsibilities is to collect $6 billion in property taxes for the taxing entities. So I'll let Margaret do our presentation.
Good evening, and I think my information is...
Can you turn your light on? I mean, your mic on. Sorry. Thank you.
We concurred with the recommendations from the civil grand jury. They had recommendations 8A and B for us, and that was to include information on the name of the taxing agency, the measure, the telephone number, and contact information, and a little bit of a narrative of what that entails. In addition to that, we were also we're recommended to develop a website to provide detailed information, which we both complied with and has been in operation for the past 2 years.
The past 2 years?
Correct. I do have a couple of the tax bills I could show you, a before and after. I think that would possibly speak to the actions. I'm going to hop over to the other side.
Okay.
So back in 2016, you would see that we had a one-page document, and the highlighted portion in the middle of the screen for you pretty much shows you the special assessment taxes and the limitation of the information we provided. As of today, you would notice that we've covered all those sections. We provide the taxpayer with the special assessment number, the taxing agency, the name, the contact, of course the amount, and the assessments that are eligible for exemptions for seniors and persons with disabilities, we have an asterisk directing the reader to go to the website to get additional information or to contact those agencies for the same information as well. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I think we'll hold off, and then I'm going to go to the public, but I'm going to ask Dr. Allende to come first, and then I'm going to ask Trustee Marquez and Don Eberhard. No, two. Yeah, for this purpose, you're right. We should do three, Frank. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Aina Rudolph, Superintendent, Mountain View Westminster School District. Thank you for having me and also accommodating my tight schedule. So in Mountain View Westminster School District, this is our second parcel tax. We have used a similar process across the board. We provide the exemptions. We post ad in the newspaper. We actually just did one recently. We also put ads on Nextdoor to make sure that everyone's communicated. We post Facebook ads. And then we also send out just notification to our seniors. We sort of grandfather them in. So when our last parcel tax was expiring and a new one was coming on, we sent them letters knowing that the next parcel tax had just passed and that they would be grandfathered in and they didn't have to do anything. We do provide, we have a person in our business department who will sit down with them in the event that they come in personally. We do allow for proxies to come in as well as for them to email, fax, or to submit it by mail, provided that they give us all the information. And then we do an audit every 3 to 4 years, and that is just to make sure the house hasn't turned over. So we just send a notification saying that, you know, this house is eligible. If you're this person, please let us know. But we make sure that we try to make it as easy as possible. And the last thing we do is we do have a link on our website. And so right around tax season, we always make sure that the link is prominent at the front page. We do a big towel across the board so that people can see it.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Marquez to be followed by Don Eberhard. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm really just here to let you know that we do have our CBA, Mr. Shan, that will be speaking to the process that we have been using and how we are contacting those that can utilize this exemption. So thank you again for doing this for our community and for the people that we really need to address.
And thank you for being here, Trustee Marquez. Don.
As Mr. Eberhard's coming up, I just want to indicate that he provided some additional notes and documents that have been made part of the record for today. The clerk has those already, and I didn't want to take away from his time trying to put things on the record, especially when he asked in advance for that to happen. So that's done.
Great. Welcome.
Good day. Thank you for having me here. The opening comments by the lady from the Tax Bureau, very good news. The tax forms have significantly improved with asterisks for seniors available for exemption and having the contact information. So I applaud that activity by that organization. The issues here are still awareness, although that's improved. The process is kind of flawed. It's cumbersome. Some school districts, including one of the ones I'm affiliated with, Moreland, required seniors to personally come into the office to apply at the office themselves. And as opposed to the gold standard, Campbell High School Unified District emailed me a form. I signed the form, sent it back. They retroactively credited me for the prior year, and they also basically signed me up for future years. They also, when the state law changed, effective January 1, 2017, sent out a notification which Supervisor Cortese was put into record. It's a copy. There's lack of consistency among the school districts, and this is not just a county problem, has been mentioned a number of times. It's a state problem, which has been acknowledged by the president of the AARP, and in fact, the former superintendent of finance gentleman, I forget his name, that was from Southern California, indicated it's a statewide problem. In terms of oversight by the county superintendent's office, my direct experience was absolutely no oversight, leadership, responsiveness whatsoever, despite written and extensive communications. To this point, in terms of the law, as I heard this morning, it seems like that's still very gray. In the case of Campbell, they distinctly, once you have exemption, go to the taxing people with a list and confirm that the people are still on the tax register. They don't have to do a thing. They don't have to respond with a letter. And with seniors, many times their affairs are being handled by family members, not the seniors themselves. Many of them don't drive. And I entered into record also a written piece of correspondence by the exec director of Heart of the Valley Services for Seniors that explains the plight of seniors in here. And what we found out in this process is there are no advocacy groups for seniors. This particular board is the first that's actually heard it, and there needs to be reforms, which is why I've asked for Senator Bell to be involved, Department of Equalization, and others. So, Supervisor Cortese, there are things you asked me to put in record. Some of these were sent to the, your clerk has those. Do I have to mention those, or?
No, you can conclude. And later on, there's a particular letter here from one of our county contractors who couldn't be here to testify. We submitted the letter, but I want to at least summarize and indicate who it came from. So,
and if you might be able, for the school administrators, read Ms. Cressup's scenario.
They've been provided on the back table, and if anyone needs, if there's need for more copies, let us know.
I mean, she's been doing this for 30 years. So.
And thanks for bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Yes.
So what I would like to do now is see if there are any, Dave, if you have any questions for the folks who've presented so far. And if not, what I'd like to do is ask that we have a number of people that are here representing their school districts. And so what I'd like to do is just call you up in a few groups, and I was, because there are folks already sitting there, that I'll just call them up in groups?
4 at a time,
yeah.
or something like
so
that.
If I could ask Ben Spielberg, Rosemary Pottage, Lori Van Gogh, and Jason Crutchfield. And if some of you just signed in but you didn't want to speak, I'm not calling you, I'm not the teacher today. So really it's totally optional for you. But I wanted to invite you up, and if you could just identify yourselves as you come forward would be helpful. And you can come in any order. Welcome. You're going to want to go to that podium. The microphone's built into the podium.
Thanks.
Great.
So my name is Ben Spielberg. I'm the Public Engagement Officer for San Jose Unified here on behalf of our Superintendent, Nancy Alberon. And we just wanted to share the practices that we've been following in 2 domains that are broadly outlined in the report. One is in the kind of information sharing and outreach domain, and then the other is kind of in application processes. So our parcel tax went into effect in 2017. We did really aggressive outreach when that happened. We reached out to neighborhood associations, parent groups, other community groups, tried to ask them to put the information out, also put it in our newsletter, and then we also have it displayed pretty prominently on our website. The report does ask for it to be on your web homepage, and it's not on ours, but our homepage is pretty minimalist in design. So I think the spirit of that is followed because it's one of the prominent items on our drop-down menu, which is kind of the main way that people find information on our website. We think that information's been pretty clearly communicated and accessible to people. And then in terms of the application processes and procedures, we do allow people to mail in applications. We take them by email. They can do them in person. We'll also talk through it with people over the phone. If they have any questions, we'll follow up with people if there's any problems with their application. And our staff are very careful about verifying everything. So we think it's run pretty well. We've really appreciated working with county staff to make sure everything goes smoothly. And the one other piece that I would just note, if it's possible, it would be super helpful for us if we could get notification of ownership changes in APNs, just because right now we typically assume that the exemption stays in effect for the duration of the parcel tax. But if anything does change, it would be great to get that from the county when it happens. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to set this at 3 minutes. Frank, thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Rosemary Pottage. I'm the Chief Business Officer of Los Gatos Saratoga Union High School District. And we have a parcel tax that started in 2011, reauthorized in 2016. About 6% of our parcels are exempted, and the majority of that is senior exemptions. And one of the most effective things that have been put into place actually is the change on the assessor's bill. Because when that goes out, we get a slew of phone calls. And they're looking at that bill, they're saying, oh, I see this little asterisk here, I see I might be available to get an exemption. That's when most of the contact occurs. So we really appreciate the fact that that bill has been changed. We also put it on the front page of our website, and we've posted notices in the public libraries in Los Gatos and Saratoga. And we also just recently, for the first time, partnered with the Los Gatos Saratoga Recreation Department. They have a lot of senior programs, and so they have a mailing list for seniors. And so they send out on their mailing list information about the parcel tax exemption. We still do get occasional phone calls from people who say, I had no idea there was this exemption. I heard from my neighbor. It's rare nowadays to get that. And what we do in that case is we exempt them for the current year and the prior year. We refund them. But I would like to also support the idea of somehow getting information about title changes. What we have done is we do send a letter annually, and we make it clear in that letter, you do not have to respond to this. If you don't respond, we're not going to drop you, but we just would like you to confirm that you're still the owner at this address. If we could get that information some other way, that would be great. What we do is with those that we don't respond, that then narrows down the group of people that we then would need to research in some manner to find out if they're still the owner of that property. But if there was a different way of doing it, we would love to streamline that process.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Van Gogh. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Sunnyvale School District. We've had a long-standing parcel tax in our district, and we recently renewed. Twice a year, once in early spring and once in early summer, we take out a half-page ad in our community newspaper, and it's distributed throughout the homes and businesses in our community. And we also have them available at the district office. We have the forms in the district office. We also have a quick link on our website to the forms, and we also work with our local senior center, and I provide them with packets of information for seniors that can't necessarily get out or aren't as mobile as other people, so the community outreach through them, they can come as a proxy and submit the forms on behalf of those folks. I have someone on my team who part of her job is dedicated to working with the folks who come in for the parcel tax refund, and whether it's a disabled person or a senior person, it's her job to sit with them and help them and guide them through the process. They can be submitted through email, through snail mail, through dropping off at the district office. They can fax them, however, whatever's most convenient for the community member. Once you're enrolled in Sunnyvale. You're never disenrolled unless there is a title change on the property, and we send annual renewal letters out to all the members who are currently receiving the exemption. And we just ask them to say, yes, I live at this address, or no, I don't live at this address. If we don't hear anything, we assume they're still living there and they continue to get the exemption. And that's about it.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Jason Crutchfield from the Fremont Union High School District. I'm the Director of Business and oversee the parcel tax exemptions. We're on our 16th year of a parcel tax. We we have about 4,500 annually that receive the exemption. Like a lot of people said, we have the website. Of course, modern websites don't tend to have everything on the front page anymore. Ours is a video, but we have a quick links that it's the #1 thing listed. We have a fully digital process for accepting applications, as well as in person or via the mail. So kind of any way you can possibly provide us the information. We have a dedicated staff member that sits and works with seniors. She's seated in the very, very front of our office to make sure they can find her quickly. We do an audit each year of 200 to 300 of our 4,500, and like others have said, just saying, hey, we want to make sure you still live here. It mostly generates return to mail stating that they've moved somewhere else. It's probably the most valuable piece of that, so then we know that they're no longer the primary residents. But we process about 500 new ones each year, and it seems to be a pretty easy, seamless process for what we've heard. The feedback we get from seniors is how much they appreciate how quickly we process checks and give them refunds for the prior year. Thanks.
Can I just ask you one question, sir?
Sure.
And if you don't know the answer, that's absolutely fine. Do you have any idea what just the total population or the total number of households is in your district?
Oh, I should, but I don't. And I remember a few years ago from an election, but I don't know the total number between Centerville and Cupertino, Santa Clara, San Jose, Los Altos.
It's okay. Maybe it's something we can ask for.
It's 6 cities.
We
as well.
summarize
Yeah.
any questions that we have, and obviously
Sure,
county
that'd be
staff
great.
can get that information for us as well.
Thanks.
As my method to my madness is just simply that I've appreciated everything that we've heard thus far. As usual, when I hear numbers, just like when most of us hear numbers, without the context in terms of, is it 500 new out of 25,000 households or out of 2,000 households? You know, that type of thing. That's what I'm trying to get a feel. We know what the percentage of population is that are seniors, which is running between 15 to 17% right now. So if the population of your district, the population of adults in your district is X times 15 to 17 should be the eligible number of people. And that may be something like 4,500.
Yeah, I remember the county, someone did a summary chart and printed out of that for every district in Santa Clara County a couple of years ago, and I believe we were the highest percentage in the county at the time. But part of that was because we had a really long-standing parcel tax for 16 years, so word gets out and spreads, I think, a little bit easier as opposed to a new parcel tax. You get that initial boom from the election, so that helps us build our numbers for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And then I'm going to invite up Jason Vaughn, Colvira Chang, Patty Ernsberger, Laura Fan, and Tracy Nguyen.
Thank you. My name is Jason Van. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services at Franklin McKinley School District. Many of the comments that were made earlier tonight are the same things that we're doing at our district. We have a prominent link on our homepage for senior citizens to apply for the parcel tax exemption. It provides you all of the procedures and forms that you would need to complete or go through for the exemption process. You can email in your completed form, you can mail in your form, you can contact my personal executive assistant to go through the process. Her primary goal is to make sure that all the exemptions get processed each year. The only other thing that we do on top of that is we have a member of our team go out to various community centers and libraries to promote the parcel tax exemption to community members so they can have a chance to apply if they haven't already. Once they are a member of the exemption list, they are annually renewed. They do not have to do anything to be renewed, but we do an annual check, just like other districts have said earlier tonight. If there is no reply, we don't take them off the list, but if we get a reply that they have moved or left the district, then we would remove them from the list. That's it.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us. Welcome. The podium is where you want to go. I know that's very I should just get rid of that.
It's hidden.
Yeah, we just do that to psych people out a little bit, I guess.
Good evening. My name is Colvira Chang. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Business Service for Alum Rock Elementary School District. And similar to my colleague that just spoke right now, we do have a link on our homepage that has all the forms, both for exemption and also the application to get a refund. We do allow our community to send that via email, electronically, or they can deliver that in person. We have a designated person in the business office to sit down with our citizens if they need some instructions in terms of how to fill out those application itself. once they're qualified, they're qualified. And again, we also send out the annual report, not annual letter, just to request that they acknowledge that they're still the owner of the property. I do want to echo one of my colleagues that spoke earlier in terms of getting the information from a different source, because we do have to spend a lot of resources trying to research in terms of the annual letter. If you don't get a response back, the districts will need to do some additional research.
So if you don't get a response back, do you just leave them on?
Yeah, we leave them on, but
I
also
hear what
we
you're
do want to
saying.
follow up and say, just to make sure that they're still eligible for the exemption. Okay.
Thank
That's
you.
it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Laura Fan. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Oak Grove School District. I just want to reaffirm the responses that we made to the 2016-17 grand jury report, and in May of 2018 as a follow-up to the grand jury, and again in September 2018 in response to Supervisor Cortese's office. In our district, we have a clear and detailed documented process and procedures for our staff to follow in terms of how we process parcel tax exemptions. We exert all efforts to communicate to our community. We include the informations on the exemptions in our quarterly superintendent's newsletter that go out to all residents within our district. In addition, we also post frequently asked questions, flyers at community and senior citizens and all of our local libraries. We regularly update our district website. There is a form, an application form on our website, so we accept applications via email, in person, or by postal mail. We also accept applications via proxy in case, a family member has to apply for the residence. In follow-up to the new government code sections 5079D, we do leave our exemptions on the list unless we have written verification that the senior citizen is no longer exempt, either by having moved or, unfortunately, no longer at that residence for any other reason. I do want to highlight two challenges that our district faces. First of all, we do not receive notifications of change of ownership and or residency. There is, unless we try to reach out and, we send out emails, letters, all of that, we don't get response, we don't get notifications. Oftentimes, most of the time, I would say, our verifications letter do not get a response. And there's no way for us to know whether there's any change of ownership or residency. Secondly, the challenge to our effort to fulfill our promise for senior exemption is that the tax roll does not provide us with age or birth dates of the owners. So again, there's not any way for us to do that. I do have a recommendations for the county if possible. If the county, maybe the county can help the school districts with further outreach by including a flyer with the tax bill, letting them know or notifying the owners to pay attention to whether they are exempt or may be exempt for seniors or SSI exemption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Patty Arnsberger, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Support Services for the Moreland School District. And so I would like to just reiterate a lot of what you've already heard this evening from my other colleagues, is that we do have information available on our website. We put a link on our front page, talks about how to apply, the forms to apply. The other exemption that we offer that I didn't hear mentioned earlier is that we also offer an exemption on contiguous parcels as well. So if you're a senior and you own the parcel next door to the one you have, you get an exemption on that parcel as well. The other information that we put out, we have site newsletters that go out. We do advertising on our social media. And then twice a year, our superintendent puts out a community notice. And so this goes out to all the residents in our community. And in there, we do have information for our seniors about how to apply for that. We do allow them to, we have the applications online. If they can't come in, my administrative assistant, there's just two of us in the business office. We're a small district, but she does, will work with the seniors to try to get whatever information she can online if that's necessary, or if they have a son or a daughter that wants to bring it in, that kind of thing, we do allow that as well. So we do send out verification notices. I believe that's part of our fiduciary responsibility to our parcel tax committee to make sure that we're verifying that the people who are getting the exemptions are allowed to have those exemptions. We do that starting in January. We do it 3 times to make sure. We get a lot of responses back, so it hasn't been a very big issue for us. We have about 11,000 parcels in our district, and we have about 900 exemptions at this point. So it's about 8.5% that we have in our district. Also, we do sometimes have seniors say to us, you know what, it's okay. I'd rather pay it to support the children in the district, so that always makes us happy too. Our struggle is what you've already heard before, is that we don't have access to the information about who's a senior and who's not a senior. So if we don't get our verifications back, we have to do a lot of digging on the website. I know there are some districts that hire consultants to do that work. We prefer to use these dollars for our students, so we don't do that. So we do that in-house as much as we can. So by the time we're done, we may have 30 or 40 that we didn't receive verifications back. We don't stop the exemption, but we do continue to try to look on the website to find out if the property is sold and try to do as much due diligence as we can.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tracy Huynh, and I'm the financial officer for Mount Pleasant Elementary School District. So our parcel tax also have exemptions for seniors and SSI's disability person. Every year we require a renewal of the exemption request form. So after a response to the grand jury, we also make those form and application post on our website, make it on the front page. The language, make it very clear, simple, and easy to understand, especially at the clerk that who help to receive the application for exemption with the seniors is very friendly, and we are a very small community. The senior love to come and see her and talk with her every year, once a year. So our district small. Every year we have only about 5,000 parcels and only 60 to 70 exemptions, and the number is very consistent every year. And we did some surveys, asked some senior like if they want us to do differently, but most of them, they prefer mail over the online because some of them, they don't access computer that often. So we try to improve and continue to get input to improve the system better. Thank you.
Can you repeat those numbers again? You said you have 5,000 parcels.
And yeah, about 60 to 70 exemptions.
60 to 70? So you have essentially 1%? Is that?
Yeah, very small.
Yeah, that's, okay. We'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you. And then our last 3 speakers are Nellie Yang, Teresa McNamee, and Bob Gill. And if there's anybody else who wants to come forward, this would be a time to do that. But if we can take these last 3 speakers. And we're only letting people speak one time. What's that?
Do we have an opportunity to respond to a presentation with a...
No, but we're going to hear from folks because we took the public comment. We're going to have a discussion, but if we have a question, we'll ask. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay. I'm going to just echo what a lot of people said. I'm not going to repeat, but I'm from Los Gatos Union School District, and my name is Therese McNamee, and we've had a parcel tax since 1990, continuously renewed, about 10,000 parcels, a little bit more, and about almost 1,000 exemptions. We do an annual advertisement, And we do an annual verification, and the main reason is to get which parcels have changed. That's the most important information for us. And the one thing I wanted to highlight that I hadn't heard from somebody else is that we have an outside organization that helps us calculate our annual parcel tax, and I've been trying to find out from them if they have lists of which parcels have changed over the past year. And they're trying to work with the tax assessor to get that information. It's not been very quick to get it, but I do think that's an area that would help all of us to expedite that, because they are able to get that information. It's just difficult for us to collect that individually. So that would be one of my strong recommendations. And the only other thing I wanted to highlight is that we do send out, when we do the verification, we send out a self-addressed stamped envelope, and that has helped significantly to get the information back from the seniors.
And you said you do advertising once a year?
Yeah, we advertise in the local newspaper that goes out to everybody, yes. And then we do at the senior centers, the libraries, at all town hall. There's some other community bulletin boards that in Los Gatos that we use those. And then we do it at all of our school sites and on our website.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of senior, retired, disabled people. The reason I'm here, we can make a change in the senior citizen and also children, because the children are our foundation. If we don't raise them right, then we are not doing the right thing to do. So children is first priority. The senior who has served us from many, many years, now their time to get the benefit. And also, I wanted to say the disabled who cannot help themselves, we need to put some effort to them. As far as the school district, Dave was with me one time. We had the foundry issue in Evergreen, and the issue was the people kind of going from here to way far, because they have to go to work somewhere. So it doesn't have to go 5-10 miles away from your school. So because of that affects the family. The other thing, I will suggest that some of the family member pick one member from the family for the senior or disabled to let them know who's going to be in charge. Otherwise, we are lost. And who's going to contact them? They're on the street. So that means we need to keep the budget for that area to help the homeless, senior, or retired people. So also checklist to the school district to see where we at, what we doing. And even we have done a few things, and I check into it because community picked me up for the Evergreen to follow up, and they call a president, but whatever name they give. So we did make a change. So I need all the educated person need to think about, like they do when they leave home, how much time take them to get to their job, and the same thing for all the citizen. So we have also over 600 school children, little children in our Sikh Gurdwara San Jose. So these kind of community who making a difference has no place in any funding. Then also we have Indo-American Senior, and it doesn't exist anymore. So that means we should look at not to eliminate, add on to it. And I do thank you for that. We should not fight like Washington. We're here all together to work together, team. So I think we are fortunate to have all the supervisor who is well educated and doing a good job. And I thank you for that.
Thanks, Bob. And Nellie, I think you're our last speaker unless there's someone else here who wants to chime in.
Okay, good evening. My name is Nellie Yan, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Campbell Elementary School District. Just as all other districts, we have the parcel tax since 2013. We're posting exemption information on our website. So we do accepting the form, if they call us, we'll mail it to them, or they would like to pick up a site, a location, or our office, and also it's online, they can have the form. So for the exemption, we are applying for senior exemption, also for the SSI group, and also the disability. Even after they missing the deadline for the exemption, we're still taking the exemption form, I'm talking about annually, and then verify it. If they qualify for the prior year, we process a refund. So for this year, we just finished the refund for all those that missing the deadline. So I think that's the services that we are providing additional to them. We did not send it out, the annual verification, we only doing once every other year. So if they are exempt, they automatically exempt for following year. So, but for every other year, we kind of verify, just like other, if you did not respond, you'll be still on the exemption. But if they respond to us, we are no longer the owner or not qualified for that, we will removing them. So that's our process. So, and I do want to echo regarding the colleague mentioned about, if assessor's office can providing us with additional information that can making us much easier for doing our work to provide to knowing who had the ownership was changing it or regarding the age, we can even outreach to them. I think that's probably better than they coming to us.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, so we're going to close that part of the hearing, and then what I wanted to do is I wanted to just ask Dave if you have some thoughts, initial thoughts or questions, and also wanted to just get from county staff feedback. I know the assessor's not here, but Alan, I don't know, maybe we can speak for him. No, just kidding, don't do that. But I wondered if you could give a reflection on the request for information that the schools have from us.
Can I just say something before we go into that? It strikes me that, understandably, because we're dealing with a tax issue, there's a lot of focus on the assessor's office and the tax collector's office, but the change of ownership issue is really the recorder's office. Right. And that information is publicly available. So we can do some inquiry to see, what can be done to just generate those lists on a wholesale basis or, a quarterly basis. I don't know what makes sense. I don't think we're going to figure that out here, but I think people could figure that out pretty quickly. Professionals like all of you in conjunction with your recorder's office, because that's just the way it works, right? Well, they stop now, but up until about an hour ago, people were walking in and out of there making change of ownership, 100, 150 feet away from us. It's happening all day long, public record. So we need to figure that out, but I want you to go ahead and, thank you. The chair called upon you, sir, so I just wanted to put that qualifier out there.
Just helping you with your homework.
You, Supervisor Cortez, you took the words right out of my mouth. So, but anyway, and so, I will touch bases with Larry and the assessor's office, but we do have a second source, being the clerk recorder's office, which does report to me. So I'll check check with that source as well to see what might be the easiest method to acquire that information, if at all. So. Okay.
What do you think about, that was one idea that came forward. So one is, I just want to say that concretely, I think it would be good to get you and Larry and the recorder, like at some point we should have a conversation here about what we can and can't do and why or why not. Because I know that we're also having some information requests from different folks right now that we're having a hard time meeting. So I just want to make sure we do want to say to all of you that we will have that conversation and figure out how responsive we can be and how to do that. I'm curious about the other idea that got raised about putting a flyer in our property tax bill, as a way to, because it's bigger. Let me just say this, tiny print, I think as we get older, honestly, the word tiny and print are just so painful to go together. So, you've watched me take my glasses on and off this whole hearing. So I like the asterisks because I do think that gets people's attention, but I wonder what you think about the idea of annually putting something in at least something we send out countywide.
We'll certainly contemplate that idea as well. I have it listed on my piece of paper here, so we'll look at that.
Is there any other comments that people made you want to give feedback to, Alan?
The only one comment I would like to maybe addresses the age thing that was requested by a couple of the districts. Not quite sure that's recorded anywhere, so I'm a little perplexed by that.
Yeah. There's databases that have the information, but they're not merged with
Right.
through the chair. And there would be some question as to completeness. You know, as to whether or not we had a complete record, and then there's other issues in terms of the county policy, in terms of profiling, keeping registries. I understand age is not perhaps as much of a protected class as some other categories, but generally there's a bit of an issue when you start merging information together as to what somebody else may want to do with that. That's less appropriate, you know, that isn't as appropriate as this. So anyway, those are just thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, and the one other group that I'd like to recommend that we add to the discussion would be the registrar of voters.
Right.
Because what's interesting is they actually do keep that information. And in part, we do it because we have to know when someone's 18. And in part, we are now doing a much better job, and we'll see this next year, of getting the, getting email addresses and other mechanisms to communicate with people. So if you could ask the registrar under what terms and conditions it's appropriate, I think that would actually be one area that could be helpful. And then one last idea I had as I was listening to all of you, since I have my AARP card, and I got an advertisement for them this morning for something. I thought, I wonder what that membership looks like in our county, and they've got, by the way, AARP has 2 community organizers that work in Santa Clara County, so they've been trying to be really active. I wonder if we've thought about partnering with them, or do we have a relationship with them now in any part of the county? I don't know the answer. I mean, I know we do through the senior work that you've been leading, Dave, but you know, just in terms of even communicating and buying ads or that kind of thing.
I'm going to have a question for Mr. Eberhard in a moment. Just a single question. I'll ask him. I know we indicated if we had questions for him, we would bring him up. Some additional observations, even without. Let me frame this one as a question. It doesn't appear that we have a website listed on the tax bill where the asterisk is. It clearly says call your school district and so forth. And I'm just, Dr. Dewan, I'm just wondering if you could look into whether or not you have the, you know, sort of the FTE capacity to keep your website current enough in terms of, I would think you do, but in terms of the district information, at least the contact information as to who their contact is, what desk they would like that call to go to, because then we could put we could put your website as a single website on that tax bill, which would bring people into a portal where they find out the school district that they think they're in, and they could at least make that call and get redirected from there. I just think short of, while we're trying to figure out if somebody can, you know, pay the cost of a flyer, which would probably fall upon us. In the meanwhile, that would be something that could be done anyway, you know, or even in conjunction with a flyer for those people that are a little more technical savvy.
I think that's very doable. We do already keep and update it annually, the names of school districts, central office, contact information, et cetera. So we could designate and ask the districts, but I'm assuming the CBO, the business office, would be the contact for parcel tax.
But it's fundamentally doable? Okay,
it
great.
is fundamentally doable, yes.
Okay, great. Just some observations. I want to say that where there's a little disparity is essentially in the categories that people have brought up. In other words, there's a lot of different methodology in terms of getting the word out, awareness. And it seems like there's a little bit of disparity, more than a little bit, depending on what districts you'd compare. And I'm not going to make direct comparisons, but in terms of how well that's working based on the percentage of population that are actually taking the exemptions. But I don't think in these large samples that we have one district that has 1% or 2% seniors and another district that has 19% seniors. I think generally across the board we have a relatively stable demographic in that way, you know, give or takes a few concentrations one way or the other. So that tells me that, you know, a best practices approach is probably important for all of us on this who are concerned, and I definitely got the impression that everybody who came up and spoke, wherever they were from, have authentic concern about making sure that, you know, there's processes in place that are working. So how to get awareness up, we just talked about a couple things that we might be able to help with on the county side, but it fundamentally seems to me as if a shotgun approach is not going to be as effective as a targeted approach. And I know that's the science of political campaigns and just about every other kind of marketing nowadays, right? It's how do you reach the 18 to 25 audience? Nike could probably tell you in a split second. How do you reach the sports viewing audience? You know, Budweiser could probably tell you in a second. Well, how do you reach seniors? You know, we should be able to come up with a more targeted best practices. And I admire the efforts to go out and post things at the senior centers and so forth. This is just yet another example, though, of a shirt tail effect where we could effectively target a little bit better in that the county has a congregate meals program, senior nutrition program, that's delivering 1 million meals a year. So I know, and this is very anecdotal, so please don't take offense to it, anybody, but I visit virtually all the senior centers that serve meals in the county, sometimes multiple times a year, and I appreciate Mr. Eberhard, among others, bringing this up in the first place, because in my own, again, unscientific way, in visiting senior centers and asking people how many were aware of the exemption, and then asking them which district they thought they lived in, it really is down to about the 1% level when you just flat out ask the question, and people are, of course, overjoyed to find out they might be able to get a couple $100 a year because they're on fixed income. They're already going to senior centers, you know, for a meal once a day, sometimes 5 days a week. So point being, I think we can help perhaps figure out how to leverage and be a partner in terms of a more steadfast communication, as opposed to, I'm assuming, having been a school board member some years ago for 8 years, that with limited staff and limited resources, you're not going to be able to have somebody out there every senior meal letting people know, or even once a week. But I think there are people there that can do that. There are people available that can carry that message, including oftentimes city and county staff. The other concern I have is, I understand why the verification letters are being sent out, but I don't think it's overly aspirational to say that it would be good to figure out a way to not have to do that, to be able to use the recorder's office or some combination of information to just not have to do that at all. And it's not only because it's got to be a burden on the school district, but it's got to be a burden on a senior, even if you have a postage paid return envelope. And I appreciate that very much, but I think the confusion factor sets in for people. And I think what we're hearing from folks like Valley of the Hearts, and the letter I was referring to earlier that's in the record was from Glenda Kresap, Executive Director of Heart of the Valley Services for Seniors. They have literally hundreds of volunteers that are really in a very old school environment. They're on the phones. They're taking phone inquiries all day long, whatever hours they're open. They've been doing this for 29 years. And what basically they get is confusion. People get a letter. They don't know what's required of them. And you've got this sort of redundancy, I think, for a lot of people every year. also depending on their capacity and so forth, of, at best case scenario, that they have to spend a lot of their time trying to figure out someone who can help them, like Heart of the Valley, decipher, is this a mandate? Is this optional? Is it not optional? And I know all the school districts, pretty much all of you came up here, said it's not required. We're not going to kill the exemption if it doesn't come back. But I got to believe that the average person who's not someone in this room who gets one of those doesn't know that. Has to at least spend some time figuring that out or asking somebody what the case is. So I just think from a public policy standpoint, not that we can mandate it as a board, but we should at least aspire to being good partners as a county and helping out with some of these areas around data and so forth, just because I think it'll take a tremendous amount of stress off of our seniors. That same department that runs the senior nutrition program here at the county, our Office of Aging Services, also runs the Age-Friendly Communities program, which is now in all 15 cities in the county. And there are some resources there which are obviously being targeted primarily at seniors, although we're trying to be age-friendly to the entire spectrum of age in the community. Much of the focus and most of the focus is on seniors because of the rapidly rising population. So those are just some basic comments that I have, Supervisor Chavez, and those who are here today. And I do think that we should take a two-step approach on our end, and that is to do a referral that what we call a Board of Supervisors referral that you and I could do separate and apart from this committee agenda today, but we should consider as two members of a 5-person board formulating a referral that requests of our administration to put together an augmented effort in conjunction, in partnership with our school districts, to try to reach a breakthrough on some of these issues that seem to be uniform concerns. How do we get change of ownership, and how can the county help us by bootstrapping on other notifications and existing county departments and agencies that are dealing with seniors to get the information out. And then I also do think that, and I don't want to jump ahead on the agenda, but that it is appropriate for us, as I said at the outset, to ask county council and the administration to work on a resolution that is essentially a policy restatement that senior advocates and others in this community can walk away with in a couple weeks if the Board of Supervisors is kind enough to adopt it with at least 3 votes, that says this is how it should be. This is, even if it's a restatement of the law and a restatement of the best practices that we've heard from the school districts that are doing the best jobs, that this is what the county feels is our strongest policy statement on what should be happening. I want to ask Don Eberhard to come up and just respond to something. We have a pretty good turnout today. Could you come up, sir, please? And again, thank you for your effort as a volunteer in the community and somebody who intervenes with seniors out of the kindness of your heart. I appreciate that. Appreciate you sticking with us. And I know prior to talking to the county, and in addition to talking to school districts, you have spoken to at least the prior state superintendent of schools. Could you just, I think a third step that we can take, and we can either do that jointly, Supervisor Chavez and I, or I can do it, is to send a letter to Tony Thurman, our new superintendent, asking him to look at what state resources might be available to augment, and guide the school districts themselves on, in this whole area of best practices and information, training we heard about earlier. I'm not sure exactly when that occurred, but the state superintendent's office was to take a position on funding training on an ongoing basis as we have turnover in our schools and so forth. that might be helpful. My question to you is, what kind of a response have you gotten in the past, not necessarily from the new superintendent, relatively newly elected superintendent, and what do you believe their jurisdiction is? I just want to hear from you on that very specific
The
subject.
former administration, thanks for the question, Supervisor, was they showed no oversight or leadership among school districts. Each one was an independent little country, and there wasn't any communication or any leadership in terms of trying to create a cohesive standard approach in terms of response time frames, how you send out the forms, what the forms look like, whatsoever. The finance director or person actually admitted that it's a statewide problem. And they at one point, and this goes to your point, they actually told me they were having a joint meeting of all the superintendents. And I said, well, gee, this would be an excellent time to bring this to their attention to reach some type of cooperative, uniform arrangement. The meeting took place. I asked, well, was it brought forward? And it was kind of, well, do you have meeting minutes? Nothing. But so really no leadership at all or oversight on the part of the superintendent's office, which was very poor. Relative to Supervisor Chavez's comment about AARP, I actually spoke with the president of AARP for the whole state of California on this issue, indicating it's a problem. What can AARP do in conjunction with maybe Senator Bell's office, Department of Equalization, somebody, the governor, anyone, and they did nothing. And actually, those responses wound up in with the civil grand jury that took the case. Now,
I don't want to cut you off. I appreciate you sharing, those experiences, so we have an idea what other actions we may want to take in terms of communicating. Supervisor Chavez already indicated working with the locals.
But on a very more positive side, what I can share with you, one of the things I hear is like, well, how does the taxing people share information to the school districts? Well, having talked to the Campbell Unified the school district's finance person, and I don't know if some lady was just here, she indicated that they have a person that gets some sort of records, and they can take that record and take their list and every other year easily compare that to basically substantiate who's moved or whatever, and it works for Campbell. But the reason I bring this up, Supervisor, is that in terms of communications and sharing approach, Campbell ought to be like on the podium giving a training session on what they do. It works. And in my case, I applied through email through a gentleman that moved on to a different school district. He emailed me a form. I signed it. He retroactively sent me a refund all in a week. But with Moreland, I sent him a photocopy, color copy of my driver's license, all the required stuff showing that I lived, utility bills, whatever, sent it certified mail, and they sent it back with no note, and then for 6 months they told me, well, I got to get it notarized and this and that, and then they got into this, you have to personally come in. You have as a point of record a thing from Glenda where she actually volunteered to have volunteers that take people to hospitals and medical things to drive people there if that's what it took. They never returned phone calls. And that's
I apologize. I'm going to
record.
ask you to wrap up because I know people are worried about going in and getting their cars out of our.
But again,
So
thank you.
These guys are doing something that works with Campbell. My
Thanks,
best
Don.
message is get it across to the
Thank
other
you, Don.
people.
So here's
Thank
what
you
I'm
for
going to
this
recommend is that that we move now to the to what we can forward to the board, unless there's anybody else would like to speak under public comment, as Don just did. Okay. So what first of all, I wanted to say both to the to all of the presenters, thank you very much, and particularly I wanted to just highlight the memorandum from our team that was really very comprehensive and gave me a much better picture of what was happening in the world. And also to thank all of you. I know you're very busy to come and testify. So Supervisor Cortese, what I just want to, I want to capture what I think you said as what we could forward to the full board as a referral. And I think we can do that verbally today, which is that we would ask for staff to report back regarding the communication regarding title and residency change, that we look at opportunities for the county to play a role in assistance in communication about the exemption availability through any of our countywide mailings, particularly focused on the assessor's office, that we would engage the senior services department within the social services agency to assist us and assist the schools with outreach to impacted seniors, and that we would ask our staff that's here today to work with those members who aren't here, including the registrar of voters and other partners that could be able to help us throughout the county. I want to add that I would like our staff to help us understand what the standard minimum should be for outreach. And the reason is that let me just add one other thing to this kind of direction, and then I'll come back to the why of it. And then that we encourage the folks that are doing work with the census also this year to help us look at, because that's going to be the most amazing list, because we're talking to seniors, we're talking to everybody. So encourage the folks that are working on the census to collaborate with our team internally about how we can do a better job of getting this information out. And that would be the referral I think that you were just referring to, Supervisor Cortese, and I think we could just send it to the full board from here, working with the staff that's here. Because I think actually the staff report with the addition that they did with these additions is probably easy to do. So
Go ahead. You wanted to give the why. I wanted to add one more thing, and then I don't need to say why I don't think so. Then to listen to your justification for all this, which of course I'm agreeing with your main points here. We just talked about them. That is, I would like staff, as part of the referral coming out of here, our staff, to take the number of exemptions that exist out there and develop an understanding of where we seem to be most underrepresented based on just based on pure adult population. If that makes sense.
Yep, it does.
I think there's enough disparity that, much like we do in other areas of county focus, again, whether it's juvenile justice issues or other things, that at some point we should start by focusing our help where we seem to have the lowest numbers, not to punish those that are doing a good job, but to make sure that we really focus in on those areas. And the only way we could do that is to get that information.
Perfect. And then the only other two issues I wanted to raise for staff is that there are two issues relative to the registrar of voters. One, they've just got a magnificent database. But the second is that they also go back and forth with the school districts relative to ballot language. And I do think that what's interesting to me is under what terms and conditions folks have determined they will or won't use an exemption. And I think making sure that we give information when people are coming to the registrar, not that it's legally binding, but as part of our packets, would just be helpful for them to understand better. Anyway, so that's just one thought. But the other thing I just want to talk about, a minimum standard for outreach, which is that I personally, because people don't read newspapers anymore, that much, and that I am concerned a little bit about what we consider communication to the public. And we're challenging ourselves on this, so I'm not trying to be judgmental at all, because we're really trying to learn in this new age. Even with social media, it's so fractured that it's very difficult to get the word out. And I do concur that seniors today are a little less tech savvy, but I think as we're all getting older, I'd like to think I still can't deal with the VCR, but I certainly know how to use my phone and my laptop and all that. So I want us to just give some thought to that, and I think that might be a place we can get input from our Senior Care Commission around how we do a better job of communicating in a meaningful way. But the other reason I raised the census issue, and let me go back to this minimum standard, is that the work we're doing around the census is really to dive much deeper into communities that as you all know I don't need to preach to you about the importance of the census, and it's important to all of you too as we think about long-term funding, federal funding, when the federal government is okay again, I mean, just in terms of very long-term. So, but I do think we, the board, and I think we should talk to our staff and frankly, Dr. Dewan, not to put you on the spot, but to really get a sense of what we should have an expectation around minimum standards, because reaching out once a year, reaching out in a school newsletter, particularly if seniors aren't reading those school newsletters because they're not geared toward them. They don't have children in the schools anymore. So I would argue that may or may not be the best way. And in fact, the assessors, putting something in the assessor's bills is probably a really good way because we know people open that, but there may be others that we should consider. So I just would ask our staff to consider that. So we can give the motion, Frank, to you in writing, if that helps, and also to the staff here, because this was a little, unless Dave, yours is better written than what's in my chicken scratch here. No? So I do want to say thank you to the staff. I want to say thank you to everyone who came, and particularly to Supervisor Cortese for pulling all this together, and to both of our staffs. Thank you very much. And Don? All right, we're across the finish. Well, we're close to the finish line. All right, so anything else, Supervisor, you wanted to say?
No, thank you. And thank you for everyone keeping the time limits, and thank you for a well-run meeting. I think people are probably pleased that we've been somewhat efficient getting in and out of here and getting to some outcomes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Next time we won't do this when honors nights and graduations are approaching, okay? Sorry about that.